Okay. Right. So I consider that most of you are sort of exploring data science, or you someday want to get into this field, right? So I'm just going to consider that most of you are from data science, or at least aspire to be in that field, right? Now, up until last year, right, all of us were looking towards neural networks, deep learning, right, as a field which is still adapting, right? Now, as in when generative AI, or more specifically LLMs, came into picture, right? Uh, this entire deep learning community, this whole machine learning, AI, all of these fields were uh, completely transformed in one way, right? Like you look at any sort of industry these days, right? Everyone is looking towards generative AI and how generative AI can sort of help them navigate their way, right? Whether it's your work, like let's say you are a student, you are learning something, right? I'm pretty sure most of you must have heard of Chat GPT, right? You must have used it, maybe to ask some question, right? Maybe some coding question. It can be some research that you might be doing for your exam, or maybe it's your project, stuff like that, right? So this way generative AI has sort of transformed the search, right, along with the quality of search, right, that you expect from a search engine, or any sort of archive from where you are trying to extract the information from, right? So all in all, what is generative AI, right? So the name itself is clear. It generates something basis your prompt, right? Basis the question that you ask to it, right? uh, it can be a text to text answer, right? You ask your question in the form of text, and then you get your answer in the form of text, right? It goes from asking any sort of question, whether it's code related, whether it's the question that you are asking on your document, right? Let's say you have a very big document and you are asking certain question on that document. You don't want to go through all of them, but you just want to sort of get the idea that I just want to know this particular thing, and that's pretty much it that you are looking for. So now the application of this very task, right, like looking at huge set of document that organization might have, right, or you as a student might need when you are researching for those things, right? It plays a very big role right now in this current uh, uh, generative AI application arena, right? So this is text to text. It can be transformed from text to sound to text, or sound to sound, right? Or voice to voice, whatever you might want to call it, right? Uh, Again, you can apply that in uh, several settings, whether you just want your assistant, right? Just take an example of Jarvis like thing, right? An AI which is like Jarvis, and then whatever question you ask, it gives you an answer to that on the go. Uh, there was some rumor that OpenAI is sort of coming up with uh, a certain product like that, right? Uh, so now this was text to text, voice to voice, and then output can be in the form of text all the time, right? Because it's generated by LLM. And other interesting one that I'm pretty sure you must have seen in social media, uh, and nowadays it's quite widely used, right? You like prompt to images, right? You just write certain prompt, and the output of that prompt is an image, right? Now with this image, right, a prompt to image, right? People are going on and then they're just creating a clip of 2 minutes, 3 minutes, right? Now, right now it's 2-3 minutes of clip that you can generate by writing some additional software layer or create some additional pipeline in order to get that video clip, right? But just think of a prospect that you write certain prompt, right? And then 15-20 minutes or half an hour short video content comes up, right? Maybe a short documentary about things that you are thinking about, right? Just think of the presentation barrier that we have right now, right? Like most of us who are pretty good at writing, who are pretty good at sort of presenting things when it comes to writing it and then sending it or sharing it with someone, but you might not want to be someone who just comes on and then presents those things, right? So that is where your ideas come into picture, right? You can just present it basis your prompt that you just give it to it, right? So prompt plays a very vital role here. So is the hype real? I'm not going to answer it for you. You have to just look around, right? Look at your use cases, talk to your colleagues, or talk to the industry from where you are, or the industry where you are looking towards to join and to sort of explore your career in, right? So it's totally up to you to decide, right? I'm not going to make the call for you. Great. Moving on to the next slide that we have, which is the impact of generative AI across industries, right? Because when you are looking to uh, find a job, right? First, you might want to have a look at the industry, right? Let's say you are interested in certain technology, right? And you feel like, okay, I want to join this tech. I want to work with this tech stack, but I also want to join that industry which is adopting it, right? You might not want to join industry which is not so much open towards sort of adopting these new tech, right? A lot of industries are not fully open to this, right? Uh, when it comes to sectors like banking, right, they are very skeptical about these new techniques which come in, right? Because compliance are there, right? A lot of things has to be looked at before adopting any sort of new technology that is coming in, right? So these are the industries which is open to adapting these generative AI pipelines, generative AI applications to their work stream. And the fact that these industries are open to applying generative AI, applying very small bit of generative AI, because as you would just look into industry, right? You would get that not everyone or not every industry is using generative AI as the core of the application that they are developing, right? Obviously, they would be using it, but that would be a very small bit of it, right? So these are some of the industries which is sort of adapting generative AI right now, and you might want to have a look at them if you want to sort of explore generative AI and if you want to get a job very quickly, right? Because that is the session about, right? Like you want to sort of kickstart your generative AI career in case if you want to, right? So these are some of the industries. Obviously, there are other industries which is also adapting it, but not as fast as these 4 or 5 industries are right now, right? So just a heads up, if you have any question along the way, feel free to type it out in the message box. I'll just answer them in the end, right? So that should be pretty much okay. Right, Niharika?
Yeah, I can see a few raised hands. Just to let
Okay,
you know that you can just punch in your question in the Q&A box that you can see, and then we'll take it up after the presentation.
great. Yeah, great. So let's move to the next one. Now, you know that these are the industry uh, who are sort of open to this new application which you are interested in, right? Now, you need to sort of learn those skills that is required over there, right? First and foremost is the prompt, right? Like how do you ask question to these LLMs, right? The large language models, how do you ask question, how do you formulate your question in such a way, right? uh, that it gives you the output that you are expecting it to give. So prompt or the question, the way you ask it, it plays a very vital role in this, right? Now, next one is analytical skills, right? Now, when I say analytical skill, I don't mean to say that you have to be a data scientist to have an analytical mind, right? Uh, that's not the case. You just need to be, how do I put it? You just need to be someone who asks question and then uh, restructure the output, restructure the input, and also look at the pros and cons of the tools that you are using, right? So these days there are many open source LLMs that you can use them for free. You don't need to pay anything, right? Obviously, in the case of ChatGPT as well, you can use it for free at the user interface. But if you want to use uh, ChatGPT API, right, you need to pay a certain amount for that, right? That is where some of the open source LLM come into picture, where you just start leveraging them in your project without paying anything. Obviously, there is some infrastructure cost associated to that, but you don't have to pay for the model per se, right? So analytical skill is something which is necessary for you to look at the upside and why at all you should use that LLM and not other, right? So those sort of things. Up once you choose those LLMs, you need to sort of look at the compliance and monitor those LLMs, what sort of output it is giving you, whether there is any sort of bias in the answer that it is giving you, right? So those sort of things you need to have a look at very closely. Without it, there might be a catastrophic failure in that, right? You might not even want an application like that, right? Because if it fails miserably. So you might want to have that in place. I would say that is probably one of the most important aspect of it, right? Monitoring the model. Now, once you have the prompt, once you have the understanding of prompt, and you kind of feel like you have a certain scale by which you can measure the performance of the LLM that you are using, you need a general purpose programming language, right? In order to sort of customize the application that you want to sort of create for yourself or the client or maybe any stakeholder for whom you might be working for, right? So a general purpose programming language, whenever it comes, it's pretty much Python, right? I know some of you might have some other favorites, but I would say if you don't know any programming language yet, start with Python, right? But if you know, pretty much you can start with that as well. Should be pretty much fine, right? Next one is uh, you need to understand the key components, right? So LLM is just a part of it, right? You need several other components along with that in order to create an effective application out of it, right? So let's take a very simple example that you want to ask certain question on your document, right? So in this case, you might want to have something called vector databases. Now, I'm not going to delve deep dive into these components right now because we have a very limited time right now. but I'll just give you those dots, and probably you can search them and sort of try and understand what these components are, right? So you might want to have a understanding of vector databases, right? So they are, consider them as a uh, storage point, just as you have as a relational databases, MySQL, the Oracles, right? So Postgres, like these, right? But these vector databases are very exclusive to LLM application, right? So you might want to have a look at them, right? Uh, Along with that, there is something called embedding, right? You might want to have a look at embedding models, right? So these are some of the components. Along there are multiple other components, but these are the major ones that you might want to have a look at. And using these, you can create some complex application which would actually help you out uh, uh, to present it to the user, or maybe in-house, right? You might want to use it for yourself as well, right? So maybe just look out for those components, right? Now, once you have those four things that we discussed, you might want to present it, right? So the response that you are getting from the LLMs, you might want to present it in such a way so that it's in sync with the application that you are creating, right? So uh, pretty much previous skills that is needed is valid here, right? Nothing goes obsolete. So presentation skill is something that you might want to present the output, present the final response, maybe assert some checks before showing it to the final user, right? So you might want to have a look at that as well, right? So these are a very broad skills that you need. Now, I don't expect anyone to have all these skill uh, intact, right? You don't need to have all these, like, mastery over all these skills before you go ahead and apply. Try to be good at least three, right? Try to be very good at a programming language, right? Because when you are starting out, you need to have that knowledge, right? Now I'm expecting that most of you who are into data science might already have a programming language with you, either R, Python, or some of you might be working with SAS, right? Prompt is something that is must, like uh, you have to have a very good understanding of prompts and how to use those prompts. We'll discuss some of the courses that might help you uh, in working with these. So prompt is something that you have to work out, right? So prompt, a programming language, if you don't know programming language, that is fine, but you need to have a good analytical skill, right? So that you come up with some ideas, as in how you sort of lay the ground for the output or the model monitoring, those sort of things, right, that come into picture. So these are the skills that you need to look towards, right? And after that, you might want to ask, like, what are some of the courses, right? I would say, don't look at multiple courses, right? Just look at the good ones and try to go through them multiple times, because you won't be able to get it in the first in the first go, right? You need to have a look at it multiple times. You need to understand all the components, because uh, these are the courses. Both of them are, so one is from deeplearning.ai and second is from I guess it's from deeplearning.ai as well. uh, yeah, I think second one is from deeplearning.ai as well. Yeah, so both of them are from deeplearning.ai. So the first one is, so second one is short course, right? So you might see about 6-7 short courses there, right? It starts from prompt, how to create effective prompt. Then it goes into how to sort of inference LLMs. It also discusses the framework, right? So what sort of framework you need to have a look at, and some other technical a very technical niche stuff like how to fine tune a model so that it's adapted to your use case and those sort of things, right? I'll discuss any question that you might have, but in terms of slide, that's pretty much it from my side. Over to you, Niharika.
Okay. There is one question that has come in. I can also see another raised hand in case you need to ask any, if someone needs to ask any question, they can just put in the Q&A box. There is one question. What is the strongest type of AI? Is that relevant?
So I would like to ask, like, what exactly do you mean by that, right? Like, what is that?
Sandeep has asked this question. Sandeep, if you're still watching, you can just be a little more specific with the question so that we can help you out.
Yeah.
Also, meanwhile, there were a few questions that we thought that we could take up, which attendees had or registrants had shared at the time of registration. So one of the questions was, how will AI impact the future of business? So I think that is something which is there on the minds of many people. Maybe you can throw a bit of...
Right. That's a very relevant question, right? So I see multiple tasks, right, that were done by humans, right, and they were prone to errors, right? Like now we have an application with the help of LLMs, with which the chances of error is pretty minimal. I would say until and unless model is hallucinating, right? The responses that you are going to get out of the model is pretty much accurate all the time, right? Whether it's asking question from a document, or you want to write certain code, right? But you are not aware of all the libraries that is available in a programming language, right? And you don't want to go through the documentation of it, right? Because documentations are usually quite big. You just ask the question in a general uh, 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 English conversation, right? A general English text, English sentence, and you would get a code out of it, right? And that pretty much works, right? So a lot of task, like whether it's coding, whether it's general task, or maybe any FAQ, or you look at compliance, right? All those things can be sort of automated pretty quickly. Now, right now, there are some challenges, right? I agree with that. But given the way AI is developing, given the way applications are coming, given the way changes are happening, I'm pretty sure you will have a pretty Six Sigma level answer on these applications going forward. So it is going to transform not just businesses but industries, I would say. I don't see there is any industry which would be untouched by the power of generative AI and what it can does for what it can do for them, and the power that the business holders have on their business would be pretty significant going forward, I feel.
Okay, we have another question from Devashri. She says, what programming languages and tools are used in the making of Gen AI models?
Right. So in terms of programming language, right, if you are asking about what programming language goes into the creation of large language models, it would be tricky, right? Because there are several components to it. Some part of it is written in one language, while other part is written in some other language, right? So that would be tricky. But if you are asking like what programming language you need to learn to excel in your career and to learn it fast, I would say Python, because you have all the necessary libraries that is needed to, you know, plug and play the application that you might need there, right? So start with Python if you have, as you have already discussed previously, that start with Python if you have no understanding of any programming language yet. But if you do have any other programming language, more power to you. Go with that.
Okay, we don't have any more live questions. There is still time if someone wants to ask a question. Before we close the session, I am just quickly just a minute, I'm quick. I'm not sure. There's basically we take feedback from attendees about how whether they liked the presentation or the webinar, but I'm unable to find that feature. But anyways, just let us know in the chat box what do you think about the session? Are you likely to recommend it to your friends as well? And this is your last chance in case you want to ask a question. You still can. Also, thank you to all the attendees who joined the session today. And most of all, thank you, Pushkar, for taking out the time and coming on board, speaking on the topic and sharing your knowledge with us. So thank you so much. That brings us to the end of the session. Okay, so there is another question that we have. Will you refer some books for reference for generative AI and Python? Books or any other resources that you want to add
Right.
in?
So what I would say is that just go with these two courses. I would share this slide with you, Nihaika, in case you want to circulate it with the attendees, right? So what I would say is just go with these courses, right? These are very short course. So these courses would give you some understanding, as in what sort of things that you need, right, to start your journey in generative AI, right? So go with these courses first, right? uh, in terms of book, if you are really interested in books and if you feel like you learn best by books, I would say start with basics of NLP, right? uh, uh, Start with any book. Just make a Google search and then uh, look out at a book and start with it. Or maybe there is a course by Stanford which was released very recently on NLP. Maybe start going through that, right? That should give you a very good idea about NLP, because generative AI is all transformers, right? So the core construct of it is NLP, right? So maybe try to understand the core construct of it. Pretty much that should give you a very solid start.
Sorry, I was on mute. Nikhil says that I will need a summary of the session. Okay, so I'm just quickly sharing the YouTube link where this webinar is also being live streamed. So once the webinar gets over, the recording will be uploaded on this link. You can just watch the webinar once again if you have missed something out. And also the names, because the slide, we have shared the slide. So the names of the courses that you have just spoken about will also be visible in the video. So anyways, that brings us to the end of the session. Thank you so much once again, Pushkar.
Thank you.
And thank you to all the attendees. Thank you for being interactive. And yeah, you can even subscribe to the YouTube channel, which is there, Shiksha Online's YouTube channel. Once you open the link, you will also be able to land on the channel and you will be able to keep a track of future sessions that we have. So thank you.
Thank you.